제가 오늘 주제가 주제인 만큼 일부러 넥타이도 안 매고 올라왔습니다. 여러분들도 점심시간 후에 졸지 마시고 윗도리 벗으셔도 되니까요. 좀 플렉시블하게 해서 오늘 80분 시간을 보냈으면 좋겠습니다. 제가 사실 이제 BT에서 KT라는 회사로 옮긴 지가 한 달 됐는데 KT에서 제가 일할 때 생각했던 게 이 플렉시블 워킹이야말로 우리 사회가 좀 따라가야 될 프랙티스다 하는 생각에 대해서 나름대로 스터디를 좀 하고 그다음에 정부기관을 비롯해서 사회에 계신 여러분들한테 제안을 많이 하고 공유를 했습니다. 그래서 지금은 제가 보기엔 적어도 이게 스마트 워킹이 선택이 아니고 이제는 가야 될 길이다 하는 그런 컨센서스는 만들어져 있는 것 같습니다. 우리가 사회적인 책임을 얘기를 많이 하는데 기본적으로 카본 에미션을 줄이기 위한 지구적인 책임과 그 다음에 엠플로이들을 일생 동안을 이렇게 여러 가지 이슈가 있을 때마다 케어하는 요새 출산 문제만이 문제가 아니고 일생을 살면서 여러 가지 이벤트가 생길 때 그걸 케어할 수 있는 하나의 새로운 시스템으로서 우리가 이걸 해야만 된다 이런 생각을 갖습니다. 그런데 한 가지 제가 코멘트를 좀 더 하자면 우리가 단순히 요새 벌어지는 일을 보면 우리가 스마트폰이 나오고 나서 스마트폰을 가지고 일을 하면 스마트 워킹이 되는 것처럼 또는 스마트 워킹 센터라고 하는 공간을 만들어 놓으면 스마트 워킹 하는 것 같이 이렇게 되고 있는데 이거는 그런 게 아니고 기본적으로 스마트 워킹이라는 건 하나의 사회나 조직이나 비즈니스를 트랜스포메이션 하는 수단이라고 생각을 해야 될 것 같고요. 우리 1970년대에 못 살 때 박정희 대통령이 새마을운동이라는 걸 제창을 해서 상당히 지금 저개발 국가들이 그걸 받아들이기 위해서 그때는 열심히 일하면 우리가 잘 살 수 있다 이런 하나의 미션으로 이렇게 했는데 이제는 우리가 통계도 보면은 일하는 시간은 한국 사람들이 많이 하는 데 비해서 생산성은 떨어진다는 통계들이 있고 한데 이제는 열심히만 일해서 되는 게 아니라 그야말로 스마트하게 일을 해야 되겠다 이런 생각을 가지고 있습니다. 그래서 이게 단순히 그런 일하는 방식의 그런 부분적인 변화뿐만 아니라 사회를 개혁하는 그런 운동이 돼야 되겠고 그런 의미에서 정부도 예를 들면 2015년까지 30%의 우리 사회의 워크포스를 모발라이즈를 하겠다 이런 아주 공격적인 목표를 세웠는데요. 이런 목표는 사실은 제가 보기에는 아주 굉장히 브레이브한 한국 정부 아니면 그런 목표를 세우고 싶지 않다고 생각합니다. 굉장히 적극적인 그거고요. 그런 의미에서 오늘 두 분의 굉장히 경험이 많으신 스피커를 모셨고 또 한 분이 판넬을 해 주실 겁니다. 그래서 첫 번째 스피커는 사실은 저하고 지난달까지는 저의 콜리였었는데 캐롤라인 워터스가 이 분야에 한 30년 이상의 경험을 가지고 있기 때문에 설명을 해 줄 거고 주로 BT의 프랙티스 어떻게 해서 이 agile 워킹이 회사를 트랜스폼 하는데 기여를 했는가 하는 걸 주로 설명을 할 거고 그 다음에 크레 무디는 지금 현재 가장 유명한 이 HR 분야의 컨설팅 컴퍼니인 타워 왓슨의 아시아 패시픽에서 일하고 있고 한 20년 이상의 이 분야의 전문가입니다. 그래서 오늘 두 분한테 설명을 듣고 타워 왓슨의 한국 지사에 계시는 최연아 씨한테 판넬을 맡기도록 하겠습니다. 시간을 세이브하기 위해서 제가 시간 많이 썼는데 여러분들 남은 자료 보시고 하면 될 것 같고요. 오늘은 시간을 세이브하기 위해서 두 분의 한테 각각 한 20분씩 스피치 할 시간을 드리고 그 다음에 한 15분 정도 판넬하고 나머지 시간이 나오면 플로어에다가 마이크를 드리도록 하겠습니다. Okay. So, please welcome the Caroline to the podium.
Good afternoon. And thank you for inviting me to speak at this very impressive event in your fabulous city. Today I'm going to talk about how smart working led to BT's transformation from a nationalised industry to a FTSE 100 company. The importance of creating what is now BT's very extensive agility portfolio and developing an employee-centric model that drives productivity and cost efficiency while partnering with our labour unions and works councils across the world. I'll also talk a little bit about how it helps to create an inclusive workplace that can employ the best people, wherever they come from around the world or whatever their background, and encouraging them to harmonise their working and family lives, whether they are parents caring for the young or whether they are carers who have responsibility for an elderly or sick or disabled relative. I'll also mention the barriers, because sadly there are still some barriers, and I'll offer a few tips on what worked for us at BT. But ultimately, this is all about how we manage people and how we migrate them to new ways of working, and the changing role of managers who will no longer be hierarchical, but who will have to set a vision and become the real coach. So first, let me tell you a little bit about my organisation. BT is the world's oldest telecommunications company. Our history goes back over 120 years. Our origins date back to the first ever commercial telegraph service, the Electric Telegraph Company, which was introduced in 1846 and was followed by a number of very small, privately owned businesses, which were amalgamated under state control of the post office. And 30 years ago, I joined Post Office Telecommunications. So I have a long history with my organisation, and today also work flexibly. And I'll tell you a little bit about my story too. So today, we are now BT Group plc. We serve customers in 170 countries, and I have the privilege to work with 100,000 colleagues around the world. So you'll see that we have very significant changes in our business, particularly characterised in this century by mergers and acquisitions. And also in 2006, Ofcom, the UK regulator, determined that in order to ensure that everybody had the same level of service from BT, including our internal business and external, that we had to separate one of our lines of business. So we now have OpenReach, which comes under the BT Group umbrella, but which is a separate organisation in many ways. So today we're a very dynamic organisation, constantly moving and changing with the market, and to deliver to an increasingly diverse customer base. When I first joined BT, we only served customers in the UK. Today we serve customers in 170 countries around the world. And that's a very complex challenge for a HR organisation, because that means that today in BT at any one time around 45% of our workforce are serving a customer from a different cultural background. Now that is only possible because of the additional business agility that's been created by smarter working. And that smarter working has allowed us to attract expert employees from all around the world and to deploy them collaboratively over an extended working arrangement, so that actually our service is always ready wherever our customers are. So, here you see BT's global workforce. We directly employ around 100,000 people. Those people work in 65 different countries, but because of smart working, they are able to service customers in more than twice that number of countries around the world. We, of course, provide networked IT services globally and local, national and international services to our customers. At home, at work, on the move. In fact, BT's Work Anywhere project is one of Europe's largest deployments of smart working. And it's just as essential for us as it is for our customers, because we have to provide that level of service in that many different countries, have a very diverse skill set that is always available. We have 25,000 customer service engineers, 11,000 customer service advisors, we have 1,000 mechanics to keep our vehicles moving, we have HR people, lawyers, finance people, all working flexibly. Even our senior managers work flexibly. They run global businesses, which mean that they need to be able to be available to their customers. Many work from home. Many are working what we call compressed hours, so working, for example, 4 long days and then having a 3-day weekend. And again, this keeps them fresh and engaged. So why have we made smarter working a core element of our business? Well, it all started off in the late 1970s. Flexible working was our response to a future vision of a changing world, the changing nature of the telecom and ICT market, and as you also heard from HJ, the changing needs of society. So when we were looking to the future then, what we could see was technical advancement at unprecedented pace, liberalisation of markets, creating on the one hand great opportunities, but on the other hand global competition. And the UK market, telecommunications market, was amongst the first to be liberalised, introducing global competition in the early 1980s. That increased globalisation and an increasingly demanding society created the need to do business and to provide services 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year, and to do so while increasing productivity and driving down the costs of employment so that we could stay competitive in this emerging global marketplace. We could also see that the world was changing. Birth rates are falling right the way around the world. We are seeing an increasingly ageing population, and life expectancy of disabled children and those who survive after serious illnesses are also driving up the need for carers in every society around the world. And for example, we work with the Indian government where they have just trained 1 million caregivers to make sure that they have the infrastructure which will allow their newly formed workforce to work and to care for their elderly and ageing relatives. So at the same time, we also knew that that meant we would have a challenge, that we had to keep those people in our workforce because they have to care, but we need their skills too. So being smarter, being flexible, allowed those people to do both things, to continue to contribute. We had also invested in research which showed the growing need to address climate change by reducing congestion and CO2 emissions. Also another very positive output of BT's smarter working, as well as attracting the growing green and ethical investors whose market is now worth trillions of dollars. So let's have a look at some of those enablers. What we have, the most important thing here is a very dynamic, harmonious workforce who has all of the skills so that they can react to the changing nature of the world and of marketplaces. Now that means that if you look at an organisation like BT, with 100,000 people, as many as 15,000 of those people have carers' responsibilities. Now, we have made a significant investment in those people. We're a long service organisation. Many people like me have 30 years or more service. So there's a significant investment by the company in the skills of those people. We do not want to lose them because they have to care for a relative. So we've developed this smarter working, which gives them some choice about how they can best work to fulfill their responsibilities to our business and to their families. And that means that they're also contributing to society. It's also meant that BT can contribute on another level through our volunteering programme, where this year alone, BT people will contribute 45,000 days of volunteering effort to their local communities, really allowing our business to be at the backbone of British society. And if you look at all of the things on this, vision, really important, absolute must to have good leadership, getting the culture right, being able to listen to your people and to work with your labour unions. Processes have to be aligned. It is very dangerous to change some of the practices without also changing the processes to make sure that what you get is continued best practice. Travel. BT people travel very rarely now. Mostly they use conferencing. In the past few years we have reduced our travel by 180 million miles. In 1 year alone we saved 10 million litres of fuel and saved BT 12 million UK pounds by doing that. And we're also reducing congestion. Our property portfolio has been aligned. So we have really aligned all of the change structures together in order to help pull those enablers and create the right environment. But in order to do that, the most important thing is to have a very clear vision which is united by absolute clarity amongst your workforce. Now, there are many models for engagement. BT works with the congruence model that you see here, which was first developed in the early 1980s. It's based on a simple principle, that organisational performance is created by 4 elements: task, structure, culture, which includes values and behaviours, and people and the skills which they bring to your organisation. The higher the congruence, the greater the performance. For example, absolute clarity on task, rewarded through objective-based management, creates people who are naturally incentivised to deliver their leaders' desired outcomes for their customers. But this has to be supported by an agility portfolio to really create transformation. And what we have done at BT is to bring together all of our solutions. Now, they're designed to accelerate and simplify the deployment of smart working strategies and transform our organisation. Solutions must impact all the key areas identified through the congruence model. So they must be applied to every piece of that model. What follows are some tips on areas that you will need to consider as you introduce your own smarter working policies. That these will ensure implementation really delivers the cashable and non-cashable benefits, such as increased productivity and costs that we have seen at BT. And to give you an example, we have seen savings of around £1 billion over the past 7 years, including 500 million for a property portfolio, but also in additional productive time. So there are 3 key areas. I'm going to spend a little bit of time breaking each of those down, but the important thing is that they include all of the key enablers that were identified earlier: ICT, technology, property, HR, and of course the all-important workplace culture. So the first area is infrastructure. Now, I must stress here, it is really important to develop a clear view of work roles and the environment, space and technology required to optimise performance and maximise space utilisation. At BT, we have created a work style evaluation mapping exercise to ensure that we have a good fit between the outputs we need from our people and the environment that we create for them and the tools that we give them. That also allows us to add any new work styles or components of work styles, such as flexible flexi time. It makes sure that they are considered and mapped into the appropriate roles. So, smarter working significantly improves space optimization, reducing the need for office space and creating the potential to make cashable savings in operating costs, maintenance costs, and, importantly, in today's environment, capital receipts from property disposals. A few years ago, BT entered into a lease arrangement with our property structure because we knew that we needed flexibility, and that released £3.4 billion back into BT's frontline services. So you get better use of technology. Again, very important that this is built into the infrastructure so that people don't have to travel. Through the use of conferencing and video calls, it reduces the requirement to travel. It reduces the wasted time that is associated with that. And, of course, it helps create a new way for your people to collaborate so that they understand that they don't just need to physically see each other, but they can connect through technology. Of course, the infrastructure is important, but we also need to engage people. So we also have created an induction process which supports the business and people as they migrate to new ways of working. And this isn't something you do once. We are migrating continuously at BT. We have about just short of 80,000 flexible workers. Around 15,000 or so, 14,000 now, are home-based workers. But we have thousands of people who work term time, so they only work when their children are at school. We have people who job share. We have people who work compressed hours. We have as many different forms of smart working as we have people. And that flexibility is incredibly important. But it can only happen if you have clear migration pathways, if you have clear ownership and leadership from the top, and also that you give your people some choices. Now, the final piece is involvement. There is no one fix. There is no one single form of smart working. Each line of business, and we have 7 lines of business in BT, has developed its own form of flexibility. And that involvement means that we can be absolutely sure that we have got the right form of working and the right people for that business. Now, surprisingly, perhaps, because it is such a good thing, there is still some barriers. But these barriers can be overcome with good leadership, clear ownership and vision. It's a fabulous opportunity to be seen as a dynamic, forward-thinking, modern and high-performing business. Leaders have to be true advocates and exemplars of the new way of working, as they are in BT. I myself work from home 2 days a week and work as a mobile worker, visiting customers and travelling 1 day a week. I'm only in the office for 2 days. So senior people can spread the message and they can live it, become example. It's important also that ownership is placed with middle managers so that they have control over team performance. The work style evaluation really helps here, but also this control also helps to overcome scepticism and perhaps some natural resistance from managers. Culture. Often the biggest challenge, it must be addressed in a methodical way. Develop a communication strategy to help overcome that resistance. Migrate to outcome-based measures for all employees. That demands a trust-based relationship with the clarity of what is needed that we saw in that model. Also, there are lots of enablers. HR, you people are critical This is a major opportunity for HR people to step forward and really drive the success of their business through procuring and implementing appraisal systems, through reaching labour union agreements. At BT, a long-standing and very archaic structure was removed and replaced with a new and commercially viable grading structure, which allows us to move forward into the 21st century. It's also really important to develop guidance and training on HR policies. At BT, we've created a HR portal which gives one-stop access to any employee can find out about and apply for smarter working. Implementation, the hardest part. Why it has worked at BT is because we've had the discipline around implementation. We have made it work. We've put in good change management structures, and we have consistently renewed our strategy as our business changes. So, to conclude, society is changing. We're seeing a paradigm shift in society, and work-life balance needs to address falling birth rates and to keep carers in the workplace. We know that there's a need for sustainable growth in that changing environment and to face increased global competition. Korea is the fastest growing economy in Asia, but there is very stiff competition, and this will allow you to address it. In the UK, we have a government drive to introduce smarter working quickly to ensure that our economy is viable. And again, I see that here also, and it's very, very exciting. We know that smarter working techniques are proven to reduce timescales and to increase customer satisfaction. So, what has this product done for BT? It's delivered performance for our stockholders. We are now leading the IT rollout for our nation and enabling a healthy population to work and raise their families. Incredibly important if we are continuing to create the workforce of the future. It's created an empowered culture for our people who have increased productivity that saves our business a lot of money, around £60 million a year, and our business is trusted and respected, attracting growth in all kinds of investors. So, this programme works. It's the future. I really urge you to become involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. So, next speaker is Claire. So, let's give a hand to the Claire, to the podium.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much, Caroline. That was very interesting. I've had the pleasure of working with BT when I was based in the UK, and I can really support everything that you've heard about the change it's driven through the organisation and the opportunity it's given to so many of BT's employees to have a broader and more fulfilled working and home life. You've heard the story of one organisation and the journey they've been through, and as highlighted, a journey that they've started many years ago. What I want to share with you today is some more recent research that we've done as an organisation that really reinforces everything you've heard. And it's still an issue, it's still a topical issue, and it's still something that we as employers have to keep working on as our society changes. You have slides in front of you in your pack. There are many, many slides with many, many numbers. I'm not going to go through every slide. I have selected a few, so please forgive me if I move and you're finding me in your pack. If you need any more information, I'm happy to talk to you after the session, but we'll hopefully follow as I go. So just a little bit, 1 minute on Towers Watson. We are a consulting firm that established across the world, based here in Seoul, Korea as well. combining two very well-known firms, Watson's and Watson Wyatt and Towers Perrin, recently merged. And we have here in Asia offices across 11 countries with 17 offices. Now, a consulting business is by definition a business that needs to be agile, needs to be smart, needs to be where our clients are. But listening to Caroline today, I know we still also have much to learn and to change. We work in three main areas, all of which are relevant to the subject in terms of benefits, retirement, pensions, talent, reward, employee engagement, and broader risk consulting. Now, when I saw this topic, I was thinking about what I would say, and the words struck me as, something that is a bit of there's a natural tension. We talk about agile working, which means to be ready to move, to be active, to be nimble, to be swift. And yet we talk about an organization. You heard BT, 100,000 people across the world. And an organization to be successful means an entity which has rules, which has boundaries, which has controls. How do you harness 100,000 people but still be ready to move, to be quick, to be agile, to respond to an economic crisis that we have never experienced before, as the one in 2008, 2009. So that to me is the real challenge for HR today. How do we develop an HR strategy that is agile enough, quick enough to respond to change, both economic change, but also the changing requirements and demands of employees today? So that's my question. I don't have all the answers, but I think it's something that we need to think about very carefully. And the reason why that's important is, as I said, the market has changed very dramatically. The recession, the economic crisis, and the recession we went through has really made organizations think and realize that they responded very quickly by cutting costs, but there is only so much cost you can cut. There are you do need people, and you do need people to be motivated. So how do you respond to the ongoing uncertainty of the economy while still having performance and engagement? And then how do you have that performance and engagement when you're trying to engage a very different generation of employees? So when we think of the workforce and the generations, it's sometimes useful to think of it from the different classifications or the different groups of people. And we've listed them here. And I'd just be interested to see, maybe you can raise your hand. How many of you would we describe as Generation Y, born after 1980? Oh, very few. Okay. Those of you who are born after Generation 1980, we call Generation Y. This is a very precious resource. These are the individuals who are coming into the workforce as a new management population. They are the individuals who will be replacing the baby boomers who are beginning to retire. And there are very few of them emerging in the organizations and in the marketplace because, as we heard earlier, the aging workforce, the demographic challenges of economic policy, of health around the world is such that we are seeing a reduction of the numbers of people available for work. So you'll see here a workforce in decline, and that certainly is in the case in certain countries in Asia. So we're having a shrinking workforce, and the people that are coming into the workforce have different expectations of work. They have different demands. And employers are having to shift what they offer an employee to enable them to attract that employee and retain that employee. And I'll share with you some of the information that will suggest that the journey that BT's been through of smart working is the journey we have to go through if we are going to engage, retain these fewer workers. This is more significant in Asia than around the world. This is some information provided by McKinsey, and you'll see that when asking organizations and senior executives what their biggest challenges were, they said finding talent was their number one challenge, more so in Asia than the rest of the world. So although we have very large populations in Asia, we don't necessarily have people with the right skills or at the right time when we need them to meet the growth in the economy and in our organizations. The ones coming through don't necessarily have the right skills, and so organizations are having to take on younger people and train them quickly to be ready for the opportunities provided. So attraction and retention in today's environment is truly critical. This is where I've now skipped some slides, so sorry. The information here, what you're seeing here is some research we've done this year on employers around the world and employees asking opinions. There are different categories listed: critical skill employees, top performing employees, high potentials, and then all employees. And then you'll see the challenges that employers expressed of attracting and retaining these employees in different parts of the world. And critical skills, the employees who have the real specific skills an organization needs, you'll see in Asia a real challenge in finding those people and holding on to them. So for an HR professional, for an executive in an organization, answering that challenge, how do I attract someone, why will they come and work for me? And then when they work for me, how do I hold on to them? Because there are very few of these special employees available in the organizations. So when we ask the questions, why would you come and work for an organization? An employer says competitive base pay, a good reputation of the organization, challenging work. When we ask employees, they say, yes, pay me well, give me challenging work, but give me convenience. Give me a convenient work location. Make it easy for me to work for you, which is very much in line with the smart working. In Asia, that's reinforced, where we saw that as being the third key request from employees about deciding whether to come to an organization, more than the reputation of the company. Once you have them, how do you hold on to them? And this slide lists here the different things that employers are looking for in employees and the gaps. And if you look at the column here that has improved work-life balance, there, you'll see that the gap, which is the third line, for Asia is the highest gap. So the perception between employees and employers in Asia around what they believe is available to them and what employers are giving and what employees want is a significant gap. So there's a real opportunity for us in Asia to improve that work-life balance through different ways of working and use that as a way to retain our key employees. So here's the summary again. Yes, I want more money, but I also want greater job security, but I want a better work-life balance. So there's a lot of pressure on employers to meet these challenges, sometimes maybe not so realistic. Again, the gap here is highlighted in terms of what's important to an employee, what they believe they can get at their employer, and what the employer thinks. Again, if I just highlight here a wide range of jobs and work experiences, the gap in Asia, again, is quite large compared to other regions of what they think they can get from an employer and what an employer is going to give them. So companies, we believe, really need to address this gap in terms of what employees want and what they can give them. So they want more freedom and flexibility in how they work. They want to advance their careers, but they're not sure that they will get that at their own current employer. They want to work and develop innovative services, but can they do that there? But then they think maybe they need to move to get extra security because, as Caroline said, there are more and more responsibilities on those at work to provide for those who are not in work, either families or elderly relatives. And as I said earlier, that gap is even increasing further for Generation Y, because they come into business with a very different set of expectations. They want to be paid well, they want to work for a strong brand, they want to be challenged, they want to grow quickly, they want to be listened to, they want to be inspired, and they want to be looked after in terms of flexibility and work-life balance, and they want to have all the technology to facilitate that. Very, very demanding requests, but these are the demands we're going to have to meet if we're going to be able to succeed in the future. So the Generation Y is looking for all those things that I've mentioned in terms of convenience of work locations and opportunities to grow, especially in Asia, where opportunities to learn new skills and convenience of the work location is critical. Once they're in the organization, they want involvement, they want to participate in decisions, they want to be trusted. Again, a key point that was made earlier, building an environment of trust. And that is, again, particularly important in Asia, where they're looking for leadership to lead from the front in terms of showing some social responsibility, being aware of things like the environment, being aware of responsibility for elders. How is that demonstrated through employers' policies is something that our Generation Y, through our research, is telling us is a key decision as to whether they will stay with an employer. These points here repeat what I was just saying in terms of some of those differences between Generation Y and the broader population. So we're hearing more and more that to get someone into the organization, you have to provide flexibility, you have to provide career development, you have to provide an environment in when an individual can progress, but they also need to see their leaders caring and being concerned for some of the people aspects of day-to-day life. So the relationship with the leaders, the image presented by the leaders in terms of being aware of some of these challenges is significant. So how does that come through in terms of senior managers' ability to lead, to inspire? Some of the points that was made earlier around trust, around representing the values of the organization, being able to inspire and lead and effectively communicate the goals of the organization and are seen to be trustworthy. It was with immediate managers, it's setting realistic goals, removing obstacles in how they do their work, be aware of how their behaviors impact, set clear goals. Some of the points Caroline made earlier around being very specific about expectations, managing for output, not managing for presence. These are all signals that a Generation Y will be looking for to really reinforce that the organization is is an entity that is meeting their needs. So in summary, in order to attract and engage and retain, you need to do a number of things as an employer. You need to do all the hygiene things of paying them well and providing them opportunities to grow, but you also need to create a winning brand and to give it an environment where you're concerned about well-being and flexibility is provided as much as pay and career opportunities. Otherwise, you will not attract, and even if you do attract them, you may not have high engagement. So in summary, 5 things we suggest is needed in the workforce today and going forward. You need to understand the expectations of your employees. You need to create an environment where they can grow. You need to involve them. You need to reward them. And you need to inspire them. So to know them, you have to understand what motivates them, build an environment where you understand the different backgrounds of your employees and their needs through listening, through surveying, and actually design organization structures around them. You need to understand what they're looking for in terms of motivation to grow, to give them more skills, to give them flexibility, to allow them to grow laterally through job rotations as much as through a hierarchical move. You need to involve them. Caroline shared there the induction program, the discussions around how things could be done differently, learn from experience, give people the opportunity to work in different ways, to interact socially as much as formally through technology, through social media, through social networking sites, and really create an environment for collaboration. Reward them. Yes, we need pay, we need benefits, but we do need more improved work-life balance, more time off, more tailoring of benefits to meet individuals' needs in terms of provision of benefits for them, for their family, for their dependents. And then finally, the need to inspire them, to give them the feeling that they are belonging to a firm that has a mission, that wants to be a good corporate citizen. Caroline mentioned the goal of BT to work with the UK society in terms of improving the world of work. And people want to work with that sort of organization who have a strong sense of mission, have a strong value set that really sets them apart from the competition. And when you have so few workers available, you need to find all the different ways to attract them rather than just paying more and more salary. Compensation is the most expensive retention tool you can provide. So finding alternative ways to attract people, hold on to them and inspire them is our challenge of today. So in summary, to build an agile workforce, to create value, you need to build an HR system that is sustainable. It can sustain economic changes, growth, but also downturns, but also sustainable in terms of being able to respond to the needs of employees, to think about your employees as individuals, not as one homogeneous whole, but actually individual groups with different needs, and target your proposition to those groups differently rather than treating every person as if they have the same expectations and the same motivations. Think about how you can bring all of this together to communicate it in the form of a value proposition, and how you would present that value proposition to your current employees and your future employees. And I just leave you with one thought. A colleague of mine was saying to me how if you pick up a report of a company, you usually have a statement from a chairman or the chief executive that says, our employees are our most important asset. He challenged me saying, they are not assets. Employees are not assets. Employees are investors. They are investing their career in your organization. They are bringing their knowledge, their skills, their abilities to contribute to your organization. The decision they'll make in terms of that investment will depend on the return they get. So if they get a stronger return on their investment, you will get productivity. If they don't see that return on investment, either they'll stay with you but not be productive, or they'll leave. So we need to start thinking of the employees of this precious resource that is shrinking as investors, not as assets. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claire. Okay, so before I hand over to the 최현아 지사장님, so I will summary a little bit about my impression on the two speakers. And actually, the Caroline gave us basically the idea how the BT was transformed. 첫째는 BT는 170나라 이상의 글로벌 서비스를 하기 위해서 어쩔 수 없이 꼭 해야만 되는 일이었다는 얘기가 있었고요. 그 다음에 이게 회사와 엠플로이들, 우리 사람들을 위해서 꼭 필요하다. 글로벌하게 이렇게 탤런트를 리텐하기 위해서는 이렇게 플렉시블한 이런 환경이 있어야 된다는 얘기를 했었고, 또 성공적으로 플렉시블 워킹이나 스마트 워킹을 하려면 클리어하게 비전을 쉐어를 해야 된다 하는 얘기가 있었고요. 그 다음에 이 모든 것이 다 고객한테 델리버리를 제대로 하기 위한 모든 옵티마이제이션 과정이다. 일하는 환경이나 제도나 시스템이 다 옵티마이즈 돼야 된다 이런 얘기도 있었고요. 그 다음에 여러 가지 배리어들을 쭉 나열했는데 결과적으로 제가 가장 임프레시브하게 기억하고 있는 거는 하여튼 사람을 케어해야 된다 이런 얘기가 있었고요. 그 다음에 우리 사회가 변화됨으로써 지금 우리나라도 저출산 문제 뭐 이런 게 탄소 문제 이런 사회 변화에 대해서 많은 변화가 있기 때문에 이런 화두가 생각이 됐다고 생각하는데 결론적으로 사회 변화에 따른 이런 대응 이런 얘기가 주로 있었습니다. 그리고 크레어 씨한테는 저 같은 베이비 부머 세대가 Y 제너레이션을 어떻게 같이 일을 해야 되냐를 교육받은 것 같은 느낌이었습니다. 첫째는 agile이라는 용어를 우리 잘 많이 쓰지 않는 용어인데 사실은 BT에서도 이 스마트 워킹이나 플렉시블 워킹이라는 용어보다는 BT에서는 agile 워킹이라고 합니다. 그러니까 그 뜻은 뭐냐면은 고객의 니드나 리퀘어먼트에서 신속하게 대응하기 위한 수단이라는 거예요. 근본적으로는 기본적으로 이게 이렇게 일하는 형식을 바꾸는 목적 자체는 궁극적으로는 고객의 요구에 대응을 신속하게 하기 위해서 그렇다는 의미에서 agile 워킹이라고 쓰고요. 그 다음에 크레어 씨가 우리 워크포스가 다양하게 이렇게 변화되는 세대별의 특징에 대해서 얘기를 해줬고, 그 다음에 어떻게 하면 그런 다양한 욕구를 가지고 있는 세대를 더 어트랙션을 할 수 있는 드라이버가 뭔가 뭐 이런 얘기를 했습니다. 그 다음에 특별히 그 중에서도 이제 다가오는 Y세대가 상당히 기존 세대하고 다르다. 우리가 얼마 전까지만 해도 X세대 얘기를 했는데 이제 Y세대 얘기를 하는 거 보니까 저는 더 많이 이렇게 간세대가 된 것 같은 느낌이 듭니다. 예, 그렇게 하고 우리 최연아 지사님한테 판넬을 좀 한 10분 정도 할 기회를 드리겠습니다.
Okay, thank you, Caroline, and thank you, Claire, for your presentation. It was really interesting and very creative idea about smart work. And personally, a lot of Korean employees, their commute time is average more than 1 hour one way, right? So usually it's very difficult to spend the time with their families during the weekdays is really challenging. And for example, myself, I was kind of spending last night to prepare this sessions. So when the time I happened to be at my home was 10 p.m. and then my son and I had dinner 10 p.m. So it was very awkward and my son was complaining a lot. So if my son hears about this smart work, then he will be very happy. And I think that's the same idea for working mom or a lot of people who likes to spend more time with their families. So obviously, this smart work is a lot of the implication to employer and employees. And I think the first Caroline's comment is mostly delivered from employer focus. And the implication to Korean company is that probably a company should define its own, smart work business model from their own perspective, rather than pushed by government, rather than by, their competitors doing the smart work. That's why they have to do the smart work. I think that's not the right way to implement this smart work. From the employer focus, what's their business model in this really challenging world? What can you done more in a smart way? So smart work can give companies in a more strategic the differentiation factor. Like example, like BT, they try to expand their services and client bases throughout this smart work, and ultimately they can sell this product to their client bases. So it's a huge business transformation opportunity. So as a leader, as an employer, we should think about what's our business model, going forward. And in that sense, how smart work can, serve our, the business needs going forward. That's a really crucial questions. And also for employee perspective, we should also think about what kind of a value proposition we can provide to our employees. Especially for Korea, a lot of the high-performing, according to our surveys, a lot of the high-performing employees said that the most top reason they decide to leave their own company is that because of their commuting distances. their commuting distance is quite far, too far, so that's why they cannot continue their work from their companies, although they are very high-performing employees, which is very sad for employee and also the company. So I think this is really a good opportunity for Korean companies to adopt for employee value propositions, and also for current aging, the demographic workforces environment. A lot of the employees wants to continue their job, but at the same time, because they are reached to retirement ages, they cannot do the work like 40 hours per week or that. So they need to be more flexible. So hopefully, this smart work can give more flexible work opportunities, so they can, probably enjoy the joy of work, and at the time they can, enjoy their the joy of their life throughout their whole lifespan. So this is really, I think, good opportunity for us. But the challenge for Koreans are obviously we are very much homogeneous society. Sometimes we are pretty much exclusive to others, which means that whenever we encounter with the different workforces, probably our the first impression will be, oh my God, I cannot work with our new the colleagues or kind of this. So we have to deal with those exclusive in a more the smart ways. So in this moment, I would like to ask one question to Caroline. And you mentioned that when your company transformed your companies to the smart work, you encountered with many employee resistance, especially for labor unions or kind of that. Can you give us some your experiences how you could deal with those employee resistance and labor unions specifically?
Yeah, sure. So, thank you. Interestingly, there was very little resistance from the workforce. Some managers felt threatened because they felt that their status was all about the number of people that they had, how big their offices were. But actually, in the process of moving from performance measures that don't add any value to performance measures which are based on contribution and outputs, we began to take that away as a concern. So managers knew that the things that they would be measured on were productivity, cost, customer satisfaction, the health of their employees, and part of the cost is about the turnover of people. So if they took on board smarter working, they would reduce their costs, they would introduce their productivity. Just on average, they get around a 7% increase in customer satisfaction because the quality of the service goes up. So what we showed them was that embracing the new way was better for them and for our business, and that took away a lot of the resistance. Working with the labour unions, again, they were initially a little bit concerned because in the UK, lots of things that they negotiated were around things like overtime payments, extra payments for working antisocial hours, so very late at night or very early in the morning. And what we were saying was, no, we're going to take all of that away. We're going to pay people well. We're going to skill them. We're going to make sure that we care about their health. We're going to help them fulfill their duties. But we won't be making lots and lots of payments because the most important thing is that our business has to survive. It has to be competitive. And if it isn't, we won't have jobs. So we worked with our unions. We were very clear. They worked with us. It took a lot of conversation, a lot of sharing of data. But what the unions found was that the workforce, their members, loved it. So when we introduced it to our engineering organisation, there was no more payments of overtime. But because the workers had autonomy, they could choose whether they took on extra work or not. Now, when they did that, they were rewarded for doing that, not for working extra time, which gives you no efficiency, but for serving a customer, output-based. On average, those workers worked 2 hours less a week, but earned more money, and BT got a productivity increase of over 10%. So the real success was showing that it was good for the business, it was good for people, and we now know it's good for society, and that was the way to get there.
Thank you. The second part of the thing is that although the idea is quite good, the question is how we can implement these good ideas into our workplaces. And obviously, the infrastructure should be implemented, and technology such as telecommunication or computer technology should be must-have. But at the same time, I think maybe my background is HR, but this is really sort of like the HR infrastructure should be aligned in order to, in accordance with these new workforces. Firstly, Korean companies should redesign the task or works in a new way. We should think about what can be done through the smart work, what should be done through the user way of kind of office work, and also at the same time, since we are going to bring in more diverse workforce into our organization, our job structure, grade structure, title, policy, and even compensation scheme should be diverse enough to bring in all those different workforces. Otherwise, everybody will not be satisfied with the current compensation and title, grade, and everything. So it has to be more diversified in accordance with the new workforces. And lastly, the cultural harmonization is really, will be crucial, because when the smart work will be in place, probably a lot of employees cannot see each other. They just they just work through their email, the exchanges. So there should be some sort of like the harmonization or concept. I'm the employee of a certain company, so that kind of things should be implemented or planted to the mind of each workforce. So in this arena, I think the leadership is really important. So my question to Claire is that how we can redefine or redevelop the leadership of this kind of the new environment.
Thank you, Helena. I think, as Caroline was describing, I think one of the challenges and one of the opportunities is to show leaders the business consequence of not doing this. The cost of property, the productivity, sharing with them the demographic information, the expectations of the new workforce coming in. Make it a commercial business decision, not about treating employees better. I think we've got to put a business context around the challenge. Yes, it is better for employees, but I think it's better for business, and what's better for business is better for employees. I think secondly, we probably need to, as you said, understand jobs and understand not all jobs, or which parts of jobs can be done remotely, which part of jobs need to be done collectively and in teams. And I think training and skill development is critical. When you work remotely, when you don't see your colleagues, that can only be successful if people have a common level of competency and capability. And so training to bring standards to a common level is critical, and I think leaders can play a huge role in defining the skills required, design and ensuring the training programs are in place to give employees the chance to get common skills. And then secondly, provide this environment of trust where you are not measured by how many hours you work in the office, by what you produce. I think, small things like, not calling your direct reports after certain hours, not sending them emails at the weekend. Start sending messages that we know you have a life. We know you'll come into work on Monday, or you'll do it when you can. But I think we can all do small things about messaging that balance is important. I think if we all said, okay, we're not going to email our colleagues on a Saturday or Sunday, begins to send a message, and I know I'll try not to send you an email on Sunday as well. But I think, designing work, making sure there's training programs to give consistent skills and capabilities in the organization, investing obviously in technology to support job design, but building an environment of trust. Without trust, flexible working, smart working will fail. Technology is an enabler, but the trust provides the environment for success.
이제 프로에다가 드리기 전에 제가 간단하게 질문 하나씩만 더 드릴게요. 같은 질문인데요. 지금 정부나 이제 많은 회사가 이게 이슈가 돼서 스마트 워킹을 할 텐데, 캐롤라인하고 클레어가 한 가지씩만 짧게 반드시 하지 말아야 될 일, 해야 되는 게 아니라 정부의 공무원들이나 아니면 기업의 헤드들이 이거를 임플리먼트 하기 위해서 반드시 하지 말아야 될 일 한 가지씩만 부탁할게요.
The most important thing with smart working is not to be prescriptive. So you can't tell people what smarter working is. What you have to do is create the environment in which people can bring themselves to it and make the best of it. So one of the biggest mistakes is I hear organisations say, we have smart working, everybody has to go home at 5 o'clock on Friday. That's not smart working, because it may suit that employee to work late then, or to go home at 11 o'clock in the morning and work more on another day. So, you have to introduce this with a really clear perspective that it takes some two-way stuff. And I would say the other most important thing is this will not work unless you have a clear vision for your organisation, which you can communicate clearly.
Clear? Any idea?
Just to add to that, I think small steps build on success, use the power of success to encourage more. So I think rather than say, okay, today we're going to have this whole new way of working and try and implement your vision in one step. Caroline described the BT journey, which has been over many years and improved every time. So I would say set some small goals, be successful, build on that goal, and create momentum. Don't try to be over-ambitious at once because, as we were saying earlier, everyone has different needs. Your work environment has to change, infrastructure has to change, technology has to change, transportation in the city has to change. So take small steps and build on success.
Thank you. 하지 말아야 될 거 하라고. 가운데 계십니다.
예. My name is Jae-ho Hong, and I'm working for Nokia. And I'm a person that take advantage from the smart working from my company because they're giving me such a flexible working time and core working time, and also my friends are very envy me except the salary. but here's my question to Mr. Kim, and because you run the best practice from the BT and you are encouraging KT. So what I'm wondering is what is the biggest challenge for the encouraging the smart working to the Korean people? And the second one is what we need to change our mindset to accept the smart working. Thank you.
예, 챌린지가 상당히 많죠. 기본적으로 저는 KT 온 지는 이제 한 달 됐으니까 KT에 대해서 자세하게 얘기하기는 좀 그렇고, 저도 이제 외국회사에서 오래 근무하면서 이런 환경에서 어떻게 보면 자랐다고 볼 수가 있는데, 크게 보면은 우리 우리한테 깊게 잡혀 있는 멘탈리티들이죠. 우리가 굉장히 요새 소프트웨어 얘기도 많이 하고 하는데 그런 기술적인 소프트웨어, 하드웨어뿐만 아니라 이런 사고 방식도 굉장히 이렇게 정형화되어 있는 그런, 그러니까 예를 들면 그래서 저 플렉시블 해야 된다는 게, 그래서 저는 스마트 워킹 일하는 방법만이 아니라 그야말로 이노베이티브하고, 우리 같이 이제 신세대들이 보면 구글 같은 오피스 만들어 놓은 거 보면 이게 뭐 하는 짓이냐 이런 사람들도 많았거든요. 사실은 이제 저 같으면 안 그러는데, 이제 예를 들면 저 같은 된 사람이 그런 게 익숙하지 않은 사람들이면 뭐 이게 사무실 여기저기 뭐 먹는 것도 막 있고 뭐 흩어져 있고 이들이 뭐 하는 거야 이런 생각을 가질 사람들이 많단 말이죠. 그래야지, 그런 환경이 있어야지 사람이 플렉시블해지고 이노버티브해지고 한다는 거죠, 기본적으로. 그러니까 그런 환경도 제도도 뭐 이제 그런 것들이 이제 그런데 우리는 사실은 제가 그래서 개인적으로는 그런 얘기 많이 합니다. 파워를 가진 집단이 파워를 좀 낳아야 된다. 회사도 그렇고 우리 국가적으로도 그렇고 파워를 가진 사람이 좀 나와야지 밑에서 이렇게 프리하게 이렇게 할 수 있는 틀이 생긴다, 그런 생각을 개인적으로는 갖고 있습니다. 네. 네, 저 뒤에 또 계십니다.
예, LG경제연구원 신원무라고 합니다. 말씀 잘 들었고요. 그러니까 스마트 워킹 플레이스 또는 뭐 플렉시블 워킹 플레이스 뭐 이런 필요성이나 이런 것들, 사업 목적에 따라서 그런 걸 해야 되는 거는 이제 알겠는데, 아까 이제 발표하신 분들이 이제 그 워크 라이프 밸런스를 이런 그 스마트 워크플레이스를 통해서 증진시켜 줄 수 있다. 이제 일견 보면은 그게 그럴 것 같아요. 근데 저도 이제 글로벌 컴퍼니에서 10년 동안 일했고, 제 주위에도 실제로 홈 워커가 있었고, 모바일 워커가 있었습니다. 근데 그 친구들이 얘기를 하는 걸 들어보면, 직장과 가정이 분리가 안 된다. 그러니까 아무 데서나 일을 해야 되기 때문에, 근무 시간도 따로 없는 거고, 밤에도 메일이 와서 전화로 해결해 줘야 되고, 또 외국에서도 메일이 와서 또 급한 일 처리해 줘야 되고, 또 가면 갈수록 이제 스마트폰을 가지고 회사에 없더라도 바깥에서도 이제 이메일 체크해 가지고 결제할 거 하고 일을 진행시켜야 되고, 이러다 보면은 워크 라이프 밸런스가 아니고 직장과 가정이 이게 하나가 되는, 그러니까 24시간 동안 일해야 되는 이런 문제가 현실적으로 좀 나타나고 있는 것 같아요. 그래서 이런 문제를 어떻게 해결해야 되는 건지, 그리고 BT에서는 이런 문제가 혹시 발생되면 어떤 방식으로 해결하는지 말씀 좀 듣고 싶습니다.
Okay. As part of the trust-based relationship, we have to give individuals some control over when they work. The great thing about technology is it has an off button. Turn it off. You have control. When you decide you're not working, turn it off. It's easy. Seriously, the point is, there is also a contract, a psychological contract with your colleagues, with your manager, that says, you trust me, I will deliver what you've asked me to. I will deliver it to the timescales that we've agreed. Therefore, if you ring me in the middle of the night, I won't respond until it is an appropriate time for me to respond. If it's very urgent, we will have agreed a way that you can contact me. But this is about really taking ownership of delivery, really being clear when you're available and when you're not. And what happens is people get to know, your colleagues get to know, your customers get to know, and you work together at the optimum times, the times when you can perform best and the time when it suits them. And what we have to look at is we do not want work-life integration. We want balance, choice, and that's important. But every one of us has to take some responsibility for achieving that. So the best way not to be woken by your phone in the middle of the night is to turn it off.
I think that's a good answer. Okay. 사실은 그 매니저들이 매니저하는 방법이 바뀌어야 되는 거죠. 사실은 이제 저 같은 계층에 있는 그 트레디셔널한 워크 스타일에 익숙한 사람이 사실은 이 일을 하는데 장애물 중에 하나라고 생각이 돼요. 기본적으로. 예? 기본적으로. 이제 그게 왜냐면 생각이 바뀌어야 되는데 저는 오늘 아침에 제가 새로운 회사에 갔지만 새로운 회사에 제 팀들한테 오늘 어나운스 했어요. 저는 아침에 제 시간에 오는 거, 그거 획기적인 거예요, 사실은. 그거 갖고 평가하지 않는다. 내가 부를 때 있을 이유 없고, 다만 해야 될 일, 준 일, 언제까지 그걸 잘 하느냐가 매저지, 나한테 잘 나타나고, 뭐 이건 소용없는 거죠, 기본적으로. 근데 여태까지는 그렇게 했거든요. 나한테 잘 이렇게 보이는 사람, 찾을 때 빨리빨리 있는 사람, 전화할 때 빨리빨리 받는 사람, 그런 건 이제 소용없는 거죠. 세상이 바뀐 거죠. 그러니까 대신 인게이지먼트, 이걸 하기로 해서 악수를 해서 했으면 그걸 델리버리 하는 사람이 잘 된 사람이죠. 자기가 능력이 부족하면 24시간 해서라도 델리버리 해야 되고, 여러분들이 대학교나 대학원 가서 공부할 때 마찬가지예요. 교수가 몇 시부터 몇 시까지 공부하라고 안 하잖아요. 그 델리버리 해야 되는 걸 델리버리 해야 되는 거죠. 그게 바뀐 거죠, 세상이. 예. 예. 하나 정도 더.
네, 안녕하십니까. 저는 현대자동차에 근무하고 있는 황정현이라고 합니다. 그 다름이 아니라 그 말씀하신 내용들에 대한 고민들이 저희 회사 내에서도 많이 있는데요. 이제 곰곰이 생각을 해보면 이제 국내, 그러니까 한국 기준으로 봤을 때 어떠한 이제 저러한 스마트 워킹 그리고 저런 기술력이 추구하는 바와 그리고 우리의 어떤 정서적인 그 컬처랑의 어떤 정합성을 한번 생각을 해봤습니다. 우리 특히 아시아 중에서 우리나라 같은 경우에는 지극히 그 하이 컨텍스트적인 문화 속에 있는데 그러한 상황 속에서 저런 어떤 개개인이 각각의 일을 수행하는 부분들이 좀 원활한 것이냐, 어떤 집단주의적 문화가 강한 우리의 컬처에서 스마트 워킹이 실질적으로 많이 확산될 수 있는 것이냐라는 의문들이 좀 많이 들었거든요. 그래서 그런 부분에 대해서는 어떻게 생각하시는지 궁금합니다.
시간이 없으니까 제가 빠르게 할게요. 기본적으로 그러기 때문에 사실은 이제 이거를 집단적으로 제도, 문화 이런 걸 다 새로 만들어야 되겠죠. 기본적으로 제가 BT 있을 때도 마찬가지 그래서 말하자면 이게 어댑티브하게 일을 해야 되는 거죠. 아까 얘기한 대로 일방적으로 뭘 하는 게 아니고 우리 환경에 맞는 그런 거를 만들기 위해서 그 정부에서도 그래서 스마트 워킹 포럼이라는 걸 만들었어요. 조만간 그런 액티비티 시작할 텐데 그런 포럼에서 컬렉티브하게 그런 액티비티를 만들어야 되겠죠. Okay, you can add one. Okay.
It's also important to understand that this smarter working isn't about two polar opposites, either fixed working where everybody sees each other or home-based working where they don't. This is about getting the best combination that delivers. And what I would say is where high contact is really important, where face-to-face is important, prioritise that time to that function. And you can also tie that into your greener policies. So, for example, in BT, what we say is because our people will mostly work together through technologies such as video conferencing or voice conferencing, but if they're meeting new colleagues globally, what we say is go visit, stay a little bit longer the first time, get to know each other, then afterwards you have the relationship, you can work through the technology. So it's about that fabulous mindset that HJ was talking about. You have to do things slightly differently, but you can still establish the relationships.
네, 여러분 고맙습니다. 이제 점심 먹고 졸린데 이렇게 저기 졸으시는 분이 한 분 없이 이렇게 계셨네요. 이제 방 배워줘야 될 시간입니다. 같이 방 비웁시다. 고맙습니다.